In a world of incompetent bosses, micromanagers, and petty tyrants, you are listening to The Leadersmith. Now, here is your host, Darren Gertis.
So welcome to the show. In this episode, I'm talking about what people look for and want in their leaders. And I'm going right into one of the best books on leadership that I've ever run across. I teach from it every year. It's called The Leadership Challenge. It's now in its 6th or 7th edition. It's a great book. I can't say enough great things about it. It's researched, it's scholarly, but it is very accessible to a broader population. And so we get to this section in the first chapter where the authors ask, what do people look for and want in their leaders? And in light of the coronavirus quarantine and crisis, I've seen what they talked about in a new way. And so I just wanted to talk about it. But before I talk about what I saw that was new, let me talk about their survey. And so they surveyed. So Kouzes and Posner have been doing this for a long time, 20, 30 years. They've been researching about leadership, presenting, and when they would present, they would survey their audiences and ask the same question: what do you look for and want in your leader? And so they surveyed thousands of executives. They had initially hundreds of values and traits and characteristics. Ultimately, they reduced it to about 20 characteristics. And then they wanted to choose the top 7 qualities that they most look for and admire in a leader, someone whose direction they would willingly follow. And that's a really interesting way of framing it, because it's not just, yes, you're the boss, so I have to do what you say, but if my paycheck wasn't tied to this, would I still follow you? So that's the kind of leader that I want to follow. What do I look for in a leader like that? Okay, so the pattern that they found, it doesn't change across countries, and that was a really interesting finding. It doesn't change across cultures or ethnicities or gender or level of education, age groups, anything. The findings are pretty universal. They're consistent pretty much anywhere that you go. And so what people look for in their leaders in rank order is 1, that they're honest. And that was surprising, right? 2, that they're forward-looking. Okay, we talk about visionary stuff all the time. 3, that they're competent. And 4, that they're inspiring. Now, I've talked about this for years, and we've gone over, honest, forward-looking, competent, and inspiring. But right now, during the coronavirus, it's come to life. And so I'm just going to use my example and my experience at CSU. We have a great example of this. Our new president, he's been here for now, this is rounding out his 2nd year. He's a retired 2-star Air Force general, the former chief of chaplains. And it turns out that apparently they don't just give out those stars. This guy is competent as the day is long. But the more that I've gotten to watch him, the more I realize, wow, he really has it together. He understands what he's doing. He knows things. And I'm just watching from a distance and observing and trying to get a read on the guy. He's everything that I'm trying to teach in my classes about leadership. He's embodying that. So let's talk about the first one. So the first one is honesty. The authors say that if you ask others to follow you to some uncertain future, and if the journey is going to require sacrifice, isn't it reasonable that your constituents should be able to believe in you? So that does make sense. So we want honesty. And in another place they say their honesty is a reflection of us. We want them to be honest. Okay. Very few of us are going out of our way to find somebody that we think is a creep or a criminal or whatever. Sometimes the followers will hold their nose because the other things overwhelm it, but we really want someone who's honest. Forward-looking. So forward-looking is often talked about in the leadership literature as visionary. And so we want somebody who's visionary. We want somebody who's seeing off into the distance and has, here, we're going to go from here to there, guys. This is the way. Follow us there. And so we really want that. Right now, in such a time, such a climate of uncertainty, that forward-lookingness stands out so much, because we have to be thinking, what are we doing now? And there's a certain psychological safety that comes with having a leader who's forward-looking. Look, I'm keeping you posted. Here's the situation as we know it right now. The goalposts may shift, but we and the senior team are addressing this, and we're thinking through this, and we're thinking about what's going to happen in the fall and what's going to happen this time next year, and we're making our contingency plans. You can rest in that. Right? If your leader, now think about the opposite. What would happen if your leader was not addressing any of that? that's a bad scenario, and there's a worse scenario. But if it was, if your leader was just simply ignoring it or had the head in the sand, you'd be terrified right now because so many pieces are moving. There's so many shoes left to potentially drop. That would be terrifying. What would be worse is if he was either denying it or just going, "Oh, I don't know. What do we do? Do you know what to do?" I don't mean involving you in the process, right? It's great to welcome people into the process to get their feedback, but if they don't know what they're doing or why they're doing it or which way to go, it's going to create instability in the organization. So that forward looking then bleeds into number 3, which is competent. Do they know what they're doing? Do they have a handle on things? So honesty, forward looking, and incompetent art and competent. You don't want incompetent. That's the opposite. It's like the Three Amigos. The old line from the Three Amigos movie was, well, he's infamous. Well, infamous, what does that mean? It means more than famous. No, not in is the opposite. So you want honest, forward looking, and competent. So if the leader's competent, you can kind of rest in knowing that they have it together, knowing that they're creating a plan, knowing that they're going to be taking care of things. Because look, your livelihoods could very well be on the line right now. And then finally, inspiring. I've never found that people thrive in an atmosphere where they're beaten down or the leader uses a nuclear weapon when they could use a fly swatter, um, rather than inspire. What we want from our leaders is somebody who can believe in you and lift you up. You don't want somebody who is going to be just swatting you for every infraction. We just don't want that. Okay, so honesty, forward looking, competent, and inspiring. That's what we want from our leaders. And it just turns out that's really the way that leadership works in crisis. And so for years I've taught the same thing, but it just came into full bloom right now. And I would add one extra thing, and I've said this in all my classes for the last couple years. I've said, there's one more element, and that is your personal relationship with that leader. And I'd say it like this: if you have my back, you get my heart. And I think that's a fifth element that should be there, and paired with it, that one's free. So I just want to leave you with those thoughts, and again, think through how those elements, if they're not there, if honesty is not there, if vision is not there, if competence is not there, what that's going to do, how that's going to destabilize the situation. And I'm going to leave you with this as the quotation for contemplation, and that is, we've heard it said before, but it's so true. We don't care how much you know until we know how much you care. And that is going to be that's going to personalize, it's going to humanize, it's going to help us understand that you don't just care in general, you care about us. And then that means that we're going to give you our heart because you have our back. Thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you later.